Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Your Bish Therapist podcast. I am your host, Melissa Reich, your Bish Therapist, a real-life therapist turned pop culture aficionado, serving clinical interpretations and hot takes on all things pop culture. And today's guest has me literally pinching myself. I'm like, whose life is this? How is this beautiful person here with me? So today, I am so honored to have my next guest is an elite stand-up comedian. But she's also a writer, producer, actress, wife, mother, and a seasoned reality show contestant. She's made hundreds of appearances on talking head shows, reality TV, but most notably, she was a finalist on seasons 2 to 3 of Last Comic Standing. Currently, you can catch her on her amazingly and hilariously named Tammy the Bull tour. Please join me in welcoming Tammy Pescatelli. Hi, Tammy.
Well, hello. What a beautiful smile. I'm sitting here hearing all those very kind words and thank you. But I'm noticing what a beautiful smile you have. And that just changes your life. You know, it touches you.
You're
and
so
then I
sweet.
Look down and it says Bish. And I'm like, hey, that's why we're friends.
It's funny. I literally always put that when on my recording platform so that when guests come on, I'm like, it's just Bish. It's just me. Everyone's comfortable. I do not take myself too seriously. So thank you so much for being here. And you, by the way, for people, you need to watch this on YouTube because you're so beautiful. You are.
Oh, thank you.
Gorgeous.
I always call it hag or drag. It's just a face full of, it's drag makeup for me, basically, at this stage of my life. And my poor husband gets to see hag most of the time. During the pandemic, like most of us, we had way too much time on our hands. And I sat around and I watched all of those tutorials. And I finally, I'm 55 now. So whatever, 52, learned how to do my own makeup. I mean, it literally took me all those years to figure out the tricks, and your face. I think that's one of the best things about getting older. Is that you know what works for you. You know that, the glitter is not going to be my thing. Me wearing pink lipstick just doesn't work. My lips are dark, really dark anyway. I could wipe this off and they're still dark, so you have to figure those things out. And I still can't put a false eyelash on, so forget it.
Oh my God, forget that. And here's something funny that I'll tell you. So during the pandemic, I did a lot of things, but not one of them was figuring out how to do makeup. I'm the type of person, when I got married, so my husband and I, we're going to be celebrating our 15-year wedding anniversary in a week. Thank you. And we've been together for 22. But he was, we were young, so, we were smart and took our time. But anyway, when we got married, I did my own makeup and I pretty much looked just like you see here. And it was because I didn't care. I'm like, I'm just one of those people. I don't care about makeup. I've never done a false lash in my life and I'm just not good at it. So I'm like, I do what I can and then move it along.
Well, you're gorgeous as is. I have to trick people. I have one wonky eye. Literally, I mean, it is what it is. It's one of those things that I think literally the false eyelashes. I mean, if breakdancing and you can be an Australian breakdancer, could be in the Olympics. I think putting false eyelashes on should be a sport too.
I swear you're right. Because I just don't get how it works. So for listeners who love a false eyelash, let us know. How do you do it? It does seem really challenging, but listen, you don't need it either. You're so gorgeous. You're so beautiful and you're so talented. So for those of you listening who are wondering, why does her name sound so familiar? Why does she look familiar? Why does her voice sound familiar? So you are truly an OG stand-up. You've been in this business for a long time. You have such a list of accolades under your belt. I mean, and how you and I connected was because you also happen to like reality TV and some things on Bravo.
Yeah.
When you followed me, I literally pinched myself. I was like, whose life is this? Because I am a certified stand-up junkie. I love stand-up. Probably in another life, if I would have had more courage, I would have done stand-up. Also, I'm funny, but I don't know I'm your level funny. But either way.
We could do it. I'll teach you how to do it. It'll be simple, but okay.
Well, also, the traveling. I mean, there's a lot of trappings that come with this career that are really challenging, which, hopefully we can talk a little bit about today. But so can you tell the listeners, what are some of the Bravo? I know you were really into Love Island. You were really into Jersey. What are some of the shows that you legitimately love?
Well, see, I was an early Bravo fan because I did that show that Rocco DiSpirito had, called Dinner with Rocco. And I did that. And I did another show for Bravo. I can't remember what it was called early on. And so I met a few of the early New Jersey housewives, Carolyn Manzo, Jacqueline. Yeah. So Jacqueline was friends with my friend Jenny McCarthy. So like I knew people. Then I became friends with Joey, and Melissa Gorga.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Because Joey's trying stand up. So it was a lot of fun. So that's how, and Marge, of course, is an angel. Even though they like to portray her as a demon, they're stupid and I can say stupid because I am as well. But it's crazy. I think one of the things about Marge is she is who she is, and I relate to it, and I follow that and love that because I am who I am unapologetically, even in my mistakes. And I think as long as you own your mistakes, it doesn't always give you permission to consciously make mistakes. But if you make a mistake and you realize that it is, then, it's like the old baseball adage, you swing and you miss. The people who hit the biggest home runs are also the strikeout kings as well. So,
you got it.
So I watch everything. I'm just except OC, because the only reason is because I don't know which one, so I can't tell you. But when I was dating, one of them slept with a guy I was dating, so I could. Yeah, he was on a friend's bachelor party, and he was like, it was a crazy story. So I don't know which one. I don't want to know which one because I just want to just generically, blanketly not care about any of them. And I don't want to bring him into this life that I live now. But yes, so I watch all of them. I love all of it. And the more ratchety they get and the more ratchety my life gets, the more I like to watch them. I think it helps put things in order.
Yeah, it helps put things in perspective. It kind of makes you feel about your life like, okay, well, maybe I'm not doing so bad. But the tea that you just dropped about OC, I'm dying. I am dying.
He was out for they were brand new, and
they had just started.
They had just started, and they went to Vegas, and I don't know if the Vegas thing was filmed, but then in one of his confessions to me, where I knew I had to break up, because I'm also one of those people who, if I love you hard, and I hang on way too long sometimes. Yeah. And he confessed, that I just want to tell you in case it comes out on that reality show. And then I was like, okay, we're done. And I don't want to watch the show that breaks my heart. I want to just see where everybody's crazy. Although the reality shows I've been on have broken my heart.
Well, yeah. And so even though I would die to know more information about this, I'll move on because I know you want to keep.
Well, I don't really. I really don't know. I wish I could tell you which one it is, and I wouldn't even know where to begin because I'd have to contact him to ask him which one. And by the way, I wouldn't. And by the way, he moved. He probably doesn't know either.
Probably. Oh my God, that's so wild. But of course, and that's the thing when you have, kind of speaking of your experiences on Last Comic Standing, when you have someone like you who you're a fan of reality TV, but you've also been on reality TV a lot, it must be such a surreal experience for you. So let's talk about that. So you were on seasons 2 to 3 of Last Comic Standing, which were the most viral, hugest seasons. There were like something like 17, 18 million viewers.
Yeah.
And I know we had talked privately about it was a wild experience for you. So yeah, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, it was early reality. The only reality that I had ever seen before was like a Survivor, which was a game. And then the MTV, The Real World. So we were the first show that was actually on national television, NBC. We were on prime time. And we lived in a house. So you went through all this whole American Idol, but imagine if all of the people lived in the house together and then they filmed us for 33 days.
Wow.
However, what we thought when we all went in the house, the 10 of us as friends, we ended up, some of those relationships were irrevocably damaged until just recently in the past 10 years fixed because we didn't know about editor tricks. There were 3 women. Okay. They had, one was the bitch, one was the whore. These are the titles. And then one was like the quirky one. Well, of course, I'm Italian and a loudmouth. Which one do you think I was? Okay. So, and then they would lie. We didn't know. We thought we were in a contest. So we didn't know that they could lie because but it wasn't registered as a contest. It was registered as a reality show. So they would say to one of the most brilliantly talented comedians, Bonnie McFarlane, who and I were super friendly when we went in. So they would say to her, you know what Tammy said about you? Tammy said that she doesn't think you deserve to be here. And then they would say to me, well, Bonnie says that she doesn't think you're funny at all. And the only reason you got in is because you wore something low cut on the show. And I'd go, what? And I'd go crazy. And they'd record that. And then they broke us up. And then they did little tricks. Early on in reality, you probably saw them, but your mind's eye didn't even tell you because they would Franken edit things. And what you didn't mess up, I messed up a lot, but even when I didn't mess up, there'd be me in one outfit and then it would cut away and I'd have another outfit on and then it would cut back and I'd have this outfit on, but yet the sentence would seem like it was a through sentence as if I had said all of this at the same time. Right. So they made it seem like you said something about someone, which isn't fun when America's supposed to be voting for you. So, and there was a lot of times that like even, we were all such good friends. Bonnie was long gone and I have hypoglycemia. I have a lot of health issues, but at the beginning, all I had was hypoglycemia. So what that means for people is I have to eat a certain number of calories or sugar or something because just think about it like, for those of you who aren't familiar, and I know that you are, but Julia Roberts in Steel Magnolias, she had diabetic issues and she kind of had a meltdown and the same thing will happen for me. So I keep telling, we're on day 32. It's down to the final 6 of us. I'm already in the finals because I won immunity. But they had no food left in the house. And I said, I have to eat. It's getting to be about noon. And they want you to be irritated. All they left was alcohol in the house. I said, I really have to eat because I also didn't want to have this episode on camera. They said, as soon as we get back from lunch, we'll get your lunch. And I snapped. But at that point, I'm literally 32 days in or 33, I forgot, I think 30. And I know not to do it on camera. I know not to give them so I go upstairs, I take off my mic pack and I go into the changing room that they're not supposed to have cameras in. And I get mad and I say whatever you say, like you do at work and you go in the bathroom and you just vent and you go in some room, but not, that's it. And I go back to work and I think it's done. But by the time it airs, they have now pigeonholed me into this character. It literally, they take this black and white Zapruder film footage of me getting angry over trying to not have a health episode.
Right.
And play it as if I'm responding to Bonnie, who hadn't been in the house for she was the first one eliminated. And they play it as if I said all these bad things about her. Now, she, of course, believed it. I believed the bad things. And it literally took 10 years of me. Now, thank God, what I will say is that show got health insurance for me. And the first thing I did is go to therapy to deprogram the Italian guilt out of my system and allowing myself to enjoy joy. And so I actually ended up reaching out to Bonnie and we have been super close ever since. I mean, she's a trusted friend. When I went through an issue, she stood publicly for me. I really adore her. But boy, what they did. I mean, you had no idea what the reality back then was technically the producer's reality. I was so excited to be on television that the first episodes, I had people over, we had champagne. And by the end, right before we went live in the finals, I was hiding in my house trying to watch it. Cause remember, like TiVo, they had TiVo, but they didn't
Right.
like with the lights off and shutting the phone off because I didn't want anybody to think that I was home or try to call me or talk to me during it. So, cause I just didn't know what they were presenting, you know?
And, it's so fascinating. I mean, also devastating to hear that that was your experience and to hear that you had to take your first paycheck and get therapy with it, which, by the way, good for you.
Well, I needed it anyway prior. I needed it prior of all the stuff that I had been through up until that point. That hadn't even aired, but when I first went, it wasn't that the reality show, it was a blessing that I already, by the time it aired, because you film in March, it airs in June. I had already been in therapy for 2 months. So thank God.
Oh,
thank God. That's all I can say.
Thank God for therapy, right? Myself included.
Yeah.
I have my therapy today.
Well, that's what comedy is, by the way, for me sometimes. Sometimes it's just my place for everybody to be quiet. Let me tell the jokes. Let me try to show you what I think. I go through a lot of tough stuff. I don't know what it is, but I try to make it funny. And some people can't handle that. And some people want to tell you that nothing is funny. But you know what? Everything with time and perspective, there can be something funny. There's nothing funny generically about certain things. Listen, there'd be nothing funny if you saw me have a hypoglycemic episode. But if you, about some of the things I say prior to that, they might be funny. You know what I mean? If you talk about that.
And it's just crazy to me that it's like you're on this show, you're in this house, and you're being denied food. Like, that is so bananas to me, because as a therapist, what I can tell you is, like, if we don't have our basic needs met, psychologically, we're going to struggle. There's something called the hierarchy of needs, and on the bottom is like food, shelter, things like that. And so if you're on the verge of a medical event, which I can absolutely relate to, and you're not getting the thing that you need, which is also food, which you need to keep you alive, that's just like abusive, in my opinion. And so I think that it sounds like to be in situations where you were being treated in an abusive manner, but then you were also truly being gaslit. Because while I think that word is overused, this is a great example of gaslighting, right?
Absolutely.
It's like you don't need food. You're fine. And if you dare to have a moment of anger because we're not feeding you, we're going to weaponize that and use it against you in ways that are going to harm your relationships. That's psychotic. That is.
Well, it really was. And also in a way, like, for example, there was one of my best friends, a comedian named Ant, and another very good comedian named Corey Holcomb. They got into an argument, and it became over the usage of words, homosexual slurs and racial slurs together, the two of them. And it got really heated. And I happened to be sitting in between them, and I got up and moved because it was uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, but they were fine. There was no fear. They told Corey, they also told Ant that I was afraid of him, but Ant knew that but they told Corey that I said that I was afraid of him. And that was such a lie. No, I just didn't want to be in the middle of, does anybody want to sit in the middle of people having a heated argument? They were upset. And it was also, again, the product of the environment because they had been poked and prodded from behind the scenes. And that's what reality shows did back then. At least now it's a little bit. I remember telling a friend of mine, because they were thinking of doing a reality show. And I said, you just can't give them anything that they, you just have to be careful of what you do. They can edit it any way they want. Do you think Jackie Goldschneider wanted to see herself walking backwards around the corner after that whole Last Supper scene in this season? No, but that's what she gave them. So, it's just a very, very, and the problem comes in the reality right now. Why? The reason that, like, the Housewives of New Jersey, the Real Housewives of New Jersey isn't working. Of course, we deal with family dynamics. Of course, Italian culture, Sicilian culture is way more in depth in this than anybody can understand. Like, it's a real cultural situation. But beyond that, there are people who are trying to manufacture realities. when you only let us see part of your life and you fake like this is real and this is not, that's, you can't manufacture it. You either have to lay it out there for real, or, whether the producers are manufacturing it like on our show, or now that we have the camera, the talent doing it, it doesn't work.
Right. And it just speaks to, though, if those are the gross, dirty tricks that they used back then, I always wonder now as I'm watching reality shows, like how much of this is reality? How much is Franken edited? Number one, and number two, I'm kind of like a moth to a flame with people like on the internet. People love to tell me things. And it's like, this has happened to me my whole life, which is how I feel like I was meant to be a therapist. I'll be in the grocery store and someone will literally come to me and tell me their life story. And I'm like, how'd you know that I would listen? People just know. So the same thing happens with Housewives and Bravo Labs, which I'm of all, and I'll never say that because I just personally don't believe in that, right? Private conversations are private. And let's just say some people are very lucky that I have those morals. But people come to me and they tell me stuff about how these shows work and how, for example, I'm going to try to talk about this generically, but these housewives shows, they have story editors. And so what's fascinating to me, right, is that psychologically speaking, we all have our own perspectives, lenses that we see the world through, based on how we grew up and our culture and all of that, right? It's super complex. But when you have one human being who is in charge of creating a storyline that may have personal feelings about said people in the storyline, psychologically, it's like, how can you be fair or impartial? You know what I mean? Unless you're incredibly aware of that. And
sure.
So not only do I not think people are aware of it, I think it's sometimes purposeful, and there's some things fans don't get to see behind the scenes. And so I think it's interesting we're giving a peek behind the curtain of, even though what you're talking about, this was in 2003, 2004, right?
2004 and 2005.
Okay.
Part two was just, we didn't have to live in a house, and it was season 1 versus season 2. But like when Bethany was talking about reality reckoning and all of them, oh my gosh, you don't even know the stuff that was said. There was a producer of the show on Last Comic. This is NBC, like literally said to me, I said, I can't wait. We were already into the finals where we're about to go live. So I just happened to be up at the Hollywood Improv, and I was doing my set that I was going to do live, and the producer was there. And I said, I'm super excited. I said, I just can't wait for this no matter what. I said, you never know, I could win. And he said, we'll never let a woman win. And I said, no, you never know. And he goes, no, I know. A woman is not going to win this show. He goes, but by next year, this time will be effing. And I thought he was going to say like effing rich, effing famous, effing, and he just left it there. I mean, it was crazy, the stuff. You know what I mean? How about the time when they told me that we were all going swimming and I should put my bathing suit on, and then nobody else did. So I just come walking out in a bikini. I mean, crazy stuff. I thank God I should try to find that footage, because I was in fantastic shape because my nerves were a mess and I was Hollywood emaciated.
Hollywood emaciated. That's such a term. Oh my God.
But it's just crazy life. And that's the thing. Now, I guess look at Vanderpump, huge Vanderpump, even fan before all this stuff happened. But look at how they literally went to Ariana this year, and they really tried to put an edit as if she had issues. She was stuffy. She not understanding that this is a woman, like they literally did not. This was 3 months after this man blew her life up.
Right.
This man that she had put 10 years ago, and not just this man, but a woman that she had stood for against all the other women. She stood for and put her arm around and accepted her into the group. The two of them betrayed her. Look at what they did. They make Katie Maloney look like she's horrible. I don't know these women personally, but Katie, not only this guy had been making out with people when they were married, he literally let that young girl what's her name?
Joe?
No. One of the things I will tell you about me, I don't know if it's a sickness or a blessing. When I think someone is awful, I forget their name completely. They're all Maleficent to me. Who I actually love because of Angelina Jolie. What's her name? Raquel. They let her speak.
Yeah.
Yet she, speak to Katie's mother like that. Even if you're not with Katie, that woman was your mother-in-law. You're going to allow someone to speak horribly to her. They let this edit be known that it's easy for these people. And sometimes I want to grab those editors and go, listen to me. We're in a new day. This is a new age where women stick together. I think that's what was so fascinating about Love Island this year, is because we finally saw that girl power was allowed. Because maybe it's because it was a daily edit and they didn't have time to manufacture too much of a story. But we tend to stick together and support each other much more if we're left to our own devices. But if you got someone chirping in your ear and you're sitting down for interviews, they divide and conquer women constantly.
Well, and you're right. And what they do is there's so much psychology behind it that I'm always cognizant of when I'm watching these shows, right? Like you're saying, there are tricks to make people feel either overly unified as a group or fractured, or like these people are skilled in psychologically manipulating people. They manipulate the people, the storylines. They are able to manipulate things to their vision or what they think will make them the most money. And so I agree. And it's funny. So I was actually I don't know if you know this, I went on Rachel's podcast.
No, I'm sorry. I did not.
No. Oh, no. Don't apologize.
Oh, wait, I think I did know that. That's how I found you. I did know.
Oh, that's okay. You're right. That's probably right. And the thing is, though, I wanted to hear what she had to say, because it's like getting to know the reality behind the reality is my jam. That's what I love to do. And it was very eye-opening for me because I just felt like she was, developmentally and emotionally kind of stunted. So I was able to see a little bit how this happened. But to your point, with the Love Island stuff. So here's the thing. I do have to tell you this. I knew that you loved Love Island. And so prior to this interview, I thought, okay, let me binge the season so I can, we can have a kiki. We can talk about it. Tammy, I look up Love Island and I'm like, 36 fucking episodes? Are you serious?
I know, that was hard. I had no idea. Listen, I went for Ariana and I stayed for the little PPG and all the chaos of what it was. And it's funny because they will literally, Love Island is a perfect example of how they will throw a woman under the bus, but a man is allowed to do what he wants.
Right.
Rob, who's a very good looking man. And I've dated a Rob. I dated an exact duplicate of a Rob, a good looking guy who pretends to not know that he's good looking. But Rob has also dated up every single time. You know that he dated Lisa Rinna's daughter.
I didn't know that.
Yes, Rob has dated. But if he was a woman and had dated so, pointedly, what would they call him? A gold digger, right?
Sure.
So one of the problems with reality. So for a little bit, I had my own reality show on WeTV, and We was new. They didn't really know what they were doing. It was
not only did you have your own reality show, you were the writer.
I was the executive producer, the creator, the star. It happened in my house. It was crazy. However, they didn't really know what they were doing. This was a hybrid reality because I wanted it to be a little bit more Larry David-y. Okay. It's an outline. We don't really know what we're going to say, but these are based on real things. So then I was also sprinkling stand up in there. So you could see exactly what I believed in, that you can find the funny in every situation. And that's what we sold it. We sold it because the pitch was wife, mother, comedian, leaving Los Angeles, moving to a small town with her crazy, loud Italian family. Okay. Well, we just don't fit in anywhere. And the network kept trying to do these network tropes with us. They kept I was supposed to be at a sex toy shop with my husband, and we were supposed to run into my, immigrant mother-in-law and my mother, Christian mother. Like, it's not going to happen. Like I literally shut production down because they hadn't told. It's funny. The cast or the crew didn't know until that day that I was the executive producer of the show. They just thought I was hired talent. And I literally shut production down that day. And I said, we're not doing this. First of all, I live in a small town. There is no sex toy shop anyway. So we would have had to figure that out. But beyond that, I said, you cannot take away this. I might not have a huge audience, but they love me for being who I am. They know that this is not real. They know that maybe my husband, and I'm not judging that it's not about what the scenario is that it's just so not who we are, let alone that my mother-in-law and my mother would be there. You don't get to do that. You know what I mean?
No, well, you don't get to blow up someone's life and have them inauthentically do something that isn't comfortable for them. And that's not kink shaming or sex shaming. That's just, that's not authentic to you. And so it's wild to me to know that as a producer and a writer and having all of this, this is your
power,
show,
and it was none.
That is one of the things with Hollywood and LA and this whole business that I just, as a woman, when you're a woman and you have a powerful voice, I know what it is to be labeled a bitch or get called aggressive or whatever, because people are afraid of a woman if they are smart, if they are outspoken.
If you wonder what I'm doing, I rescued a kitten. A few, and she's up here somewhere. I can just hear her playing. She's 8 weeks old now, so sorry if she'll make an appearance, but I just hear her like running around. She'll be here in a second. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's
okay. These, by the way, on your Instagram, Tammy Pescatelli on Instagram, and I'm not sure if you have this on other social media, but you have fostered these kitties and they are so little and so sweet and cute. And I know that there is also a charity for them because you're doing a lot of the work to take care of them. Are you still?
Well, here's what happened. My mother found these two little kittens on her driveway. We tried to take them. I wasn't home. I was actually flying in from a gig. My brother took them to the Humane Society. It just is what it is. They're overwhelmed. They said, we'll take them, but we have to euthanize them. Their eyes weren't even open. I said, bring them to my house. I was home within 20 minutes. Sadly, one passed away. The other one survived. But we called shelters. We called fosters. They were all overwhelmed. No one was able to take them. And I just said, guess what? I'm going to figure this out. A friend of mine is an Animal Planet vet. Dr. Kevin Fitzgerald looks at that. He does like penguins and in Antarctica and, polar bears. And I said, what do I have to do? I'm going to figure this out. I took the knowledge off of YouTube and everything else. And, little Smalls is alive and well and thriving and I thought I was going to foster her, but she's now part of our family.
Yeah.
So she's my little baby. But she's now running the house too, by the way. So so I wanted to start something because if I didn't have, it's all about belief or time. What if I was by myself and I worked all day? And, it's a lot I happen to have 3 weeks off of work, in order to be able to do this. If I didn't have that, what would have happened? Should I have just put the cat back? So we're trying to figure something out, even if it's just giving out a basic booklet of instructions, some little baby bottles and formula. I had to go out and buy all that stuff and figure it out. Some people can't afford that. That's, so it's important. And I'm trying to hook up with local vets that will help if you foster an animal, that they'll help you get the shots and get them spayed or neutered. So I think that's important.
I do. And I'm glad that we are talking about this because I have a lot of folks who listen who are animal lovers, animal rescuers, and would certainly contribute to anything. So we can continue to talk about this. And if there's something that I can post or, my listeners can do, I'm sure they'd want to help because that's wild.
We're using all of
it's working out.
Thank you. We're just using the proceeds. I don't know what to do right now because I'm actually gathering all the information. So we're doing the proceeds from the Finding the Funny buttons. There's just that I'm selling to just put that aside and at least start to accumulate bottles and formula to pass out to people who need them. Cause I just don't, it's so sad. What this little baby, I mean, she's just tearing everything up over here, but really became my calming cat. It's a joke, but, she deserved
Animals
a chance.
Are so therapeutic. Everywhere that I've worked, they've had therapy dogs and things like that. And so don't sleep on how much an animal can really help your spirit for sure. But if people want to contribute, they can go to
my website,
your website, which is
go to my website,
pescatelli.com. So I'm going to spell that for people. It's PESCATELLI.com. So the Finding the Funny buttons, you can buy those to help with the kitties, but also it has all your tour dates. And we were just talking about this. So I live in Northeast PA, and I have a lot of local listeners and things like that, but I have listeners all over the place. So please also, while we're on this topic, go to pescatelli.com because Tammy is touring. You have 3 weeks off, but you're about to kind of hit the road and go back.
Yes.
And you are going to be in Jim Thorpe. And I was talking that I'm going to come see you because Jim Thorpe for me is about a half hour. So if anyone is interested in seeing, you anywhere, but also come to Jim Thorpe, hang out with us.
It's gorgeous there, by the way. Jim
Gorgeous.
Thorpe, I literally had never been to. And then I got booked in this theater like 2 years ago. And it was winter time. And I had to go through all these mountains and, all the try to, and listen, I live on the other side of Pennsylvania. A lot of Pennsylvania towns are adorable, but they all kind of look the same. It looks kind of like America looked in the 80s, simple, beautiful. This Jim Thorpe is like a hallmark. Now, like I said, granted, truly. I got there and the snow was falling and it's the most unique, cool town that I have ever seen. I mean, I'm super excited to do another show there.
Yeah, it's gorgeous there. Every year they do like train rides because here in Pennsylvania, especially on the East Coast, because you live closer towards Erie and Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah. Because I'm an Ohio girl at heart.
That's right. I remember seeing that. And I'm an Illinois girl at heart. So I was born and raised in a suburb of Chicago. And I moved here when my dad got a job and then, met my husband and the whole thing. So I can relate to being kind of Midwest born and bred, but then kind of make your way to PA.
Yeah, definitely.
But yes, Jim Thorpe is amazing. It's so beautiful and gorgeous. Please check out her website. Go see her. Because, the thing I love about you is I think, and I don't want to speak for a lot of people, but one thing I appreciate most about you is just you have this fierce authenticity that it's just super refreshing. And you're so naturally funny. But what I love about you is you kind of have this like sarcastic, acerbic wit, which I personally love and I gravitate towards immensely because I think when you go through tough stuff, like for me, what led me to comedy is, having a million health issues and cancer diagnosis and all this stuff. It's like, sometimes when you have all this stuff happen to you, you're like, well, let's at least laugh through it, right? Let's at least like bring some joy, forget about our struggles. And so that's kind of what led me to stand up. But specifically with you, I feel like there are some people in this business that they're just like, you just have it. And I just don't think you get the credit and the respect that you deserve. So that's why we're trying to do this right now. And so for people listening, like, let's do everything to give you your flowers because, stand-up comedy, you really helped pave the way. Back when you were doing this, women weren't considered funny. People still try to say people aren't funny.
Yeah, daily. I get ripped apart daily.
Which is, by the way, you had posted something on your Instagram, which I loved so much. Some idiot was talking about how women aren't funny and you just like served him so hard, but in such just like an amazing, I don't know. It's just what I love about you.
I grew up in an Italian culture, like I told you, it's different. Okay. It's completely different.
Well, I grew up
We're tough on
Italian
each
too.
other.
I will tell you, I don't look Italian, but my mom's last name is Matriciano. So
okay. So if you grew up in that culture,
I grew up in the culture.
We bang on each other. Everybody had nicknames based on the flaw. I grew up with this nose. Like I can handle, I've been called Toucan Sam since I was a little kid. You know, people, you want Fruit Loops, whatever. I can handle it. So I've been heckled since I was probably 8. Right. I think that for me too, and you and I have talked about it, and my mother was very sick when I was a kid, and I was kind of not, I hate to use the word farmed out, but I was kind of, family took me in while she was sick, because it's the old days when you were hospitalized and kids couldn't go up but Sunday afternoon from noon to 2. And she was very sick with different cancers and things like that. So I grew up with my grandparents who barely spoke English, and they would drive me to school all the time. And it was a lot of cultural stuff and a lot of stuff that a kid shouldn't know about, which is why I worry about pandemic for kids nowadays. So when you grow up in sadness and you wait, and it's also very cultural, waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for that, not sitting in good things. I just wanted to laugh, but I didn't know how to, I'm not a jokey joke. I'm not the class clown, but I'm the one who will say something that I say this in my act now, but I have the ability to say such evil stuff that it sits within your soul. If you're trying to be mean to me, I am a verbal assassin. And I realized that with my brothers, that I could say the things, they could beat me up at a certain point, like brothers and sisters, but I could say something that would sit in there that my black eye would heal. But that internal monologue, when I told them they look like a safe bell on their head, they still now think that they look like Frankenstein and they're 50 years old. So I try to use my powers for good. I try to but when people try to come at me, it's like, it's worse than ever on the internet. Like, all I have ever done is dedicate my life to trying to make people laugh. That is it. Yes, I want to provide for my family by doing that, but I should be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And, you say that we paved the way. I feel like the 20 women who I started with, we built the roads. I was a 24-year-old girl on the road. You never saw that. There were, of course, people always go, Joan Rivers and Roseanne. Yeah, those guys they were amazing, those women. Right. But they weren't on the road. They were making multi-millions of dollars with contracts. That's why when I had my son and my agent said to me that my career was going to be over, we ended up in Pennsylvania. I also said to him, one of the best jokes that I'd ever said, he said, I've never seen a pregnant woman on stage. And I literally responded to him, then you've never been to a really bad strip club. And I got up and I walked out of his office and I hid that I was pregnant for 6 months. And that was it.
But that's exactly what I mean. And it's a perfect statement. You are a verbal assassin. And here's the thing. So people look at me and they think I'm really sweet and I'm really nice. And I am all those things. But if you fuck with me,
all right,
verbally eviscerate you and make you sorry that you did. I have that ability.
That's funny though. Can I tell you this? Yeah. I think everybody does, but they do it in different increments. My brain is now trained. It's trained. I'm the Navy SEAL of comebacks. Like, I know, boom, 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 boom. And it's very rare that you catch me out of my job. Even I'm not trying to always make people laugh, but I'll always, if you say something mean to me at the store, I got you. Like, I was trying to show these young girls who were in this open air Jeep. These beautiful young girls were vlogging and doing all this stuff, and their gas cap was flapping. It was just flapping. And they were in front of me, and I was trying to tell them, and I was honking and pointing. They started flipping me off and doing all this stuff. And I just pulled in front of them and then turned my windshield wipers on and let all the water fall back on them. Okay. So I think everybody has that. Just some people, it doesn't hit you right away. That's when your boss or your coworker says something smart and snarky. And then you go home on the Friday, and then Monday afternoon, you're driving home from work, and that comeback comes back, or you wish you would have said it. I just say it because I employ myself, by the way.
That's right. You are self-employed and you are never off the clock, honey, because that's what I appreciate most about your brain. It's just like, it's not even, yes, you've worked so hard, but there's just this amazing part of you that is just so fantastically quick and funny and knows exactly what to say and how to say it. I mean, your timing is priceless, but what's so interesting too, I don't know if you watched on Netflix, I think it was that documentary about Gene Wilder becoming Gene Wilder.
Oh, yeah.
It was called.
Yes.
But one thing interesting I wanted to tie to what you said is that Gene Wilder said a performative or a transformative moment for him was his mom was really sick and in the hospital. And like you said, in those days, you were infirmed. Today, I can go to the hospital with sepsis and they're like, go home and treat this. But things were different then. And so when his mom came home, his family literally told him, if you upset her, she'll die. And he literally said, you know, as a 7-year-old child, what are you supposed to do with that? And so it informed the rest of his life, his comedy, because he became like a clown and he didn't want to feel tough emotions because he was afraid that it might hurt his mom. So I just think that, you know, you sharing that experience, it makes so much sense. And we are all created by, I believe, you know, there's lots of theories in psychology about what makes us who we are, but early family, you know, cultures, mores, norms, all these things, that's what really informs our personality. And so I think that, you know, being roasted essentially by your family, which is a very common experience with me, growing up, there's Kitty.
Small.
Oh, Small. She's so sweet. Oh, anyone watching this on YouTube, she is just loving on you right now. And I just couldn't melt. You are. You saved her. Do you feel like she really like looks at you like that?
I don't know. But
God.
I have 2 other cats and they look at her like, what is going on? How come I didn't get all the bottle feeding? I don't know. She's just, you know, you're right about, I think it's all experiences. I mean, you know, I tried to be, which actually really did help with comedy. I tried to be not a problem. I tried to be very sufficient. So no one had to bother with me when I was a kid. Then I think, you know, but those things, when you make yourself, it's not that I made myself smaller, but when you make yourself, you have this own totality about yourself where you feel like I got it. I can, cause I am I did a joke about the 3 a.m. friend. We all need a person to call at 3 o'clock in the morning who will show up with a shovel and bail money, no questions asked. Right. That's me, right? I've helped my friend steal her own car back. I mean, I've come up with all those plans. I'm like Ray Donovan for my friends. Like I'm the one who shows up and packs your whole house up while you're at work so we can leave your man because he sucks. You know what I mean? Like I'll be that person.
Yeah.
But when I was in my late 20s, not late, like mid 26, 27, I dated a guy. I had moved back to Cleveland where I'm from. My folks weren't around anymore. My friends and grew up 30 minutes outside. So no one was really downtown with me. And I dated this guy who seemed like he was a super nice guy, but he really, I do think he was on drugs, but he was very violent. And I didn't know anything about violence. I didn't know anything about drugs. And he really played with me and psychologically broke. I think there are some men that try to find strong women and they want to break them, whether they want to debilitate them, their self-worth by cheating, whether they physically want. And, you know, we all say, oh, the moment someone did this, but we're also talking about the 90s. We're also talking about Tina Turner's What's Love Got to Do with It hadn't even come out. So I had I really had no wherewithal to understand. And I didn't speak to anybody about it. And even if I would have, there were some people that thought, oh, well, the truth comes out when they're drunk. You know, he would apologize, put a whole bunch of guilt things on me because his mother had died and his grandmother had died within 6 months before I met him. So, you know, but got me to a point that I was so comedy saved my life because I couldn't call in sick. But there were days that I didn't even sleep in a bed because I didn't feel worthy. I slept on the floor next to my bed. And one day he was on one of his, that little secret inside of you, that little secret voice that tells you that someone's cheating. You have to just not even question that and just leave, because who you become whether you're right or wrong, if it's there, it's just there for a purpose. Like, you really shouldn't even worry about satiating and going down the rabbit hole. I knew that he was cheating, but I couldn't get it figured out. And I brought it up, and I brought it up with some strength, and I had found these things out, and he went crazy, and he literally was beating me and choking me. And it's a horrible story. And I remember, it's funny how your brain can hold two thoughts. They say you're not able to, but you really can. I thought I was going to die. And I also thought that OJ had killed Nicole, because I remember thinking, I thought, well, maybe it was somebody else. But when I looked at this guy whose eyes were big, beautiful blue eyes, they were black as night. And that was testimony that his eyes would go completely black when he was angry. And the fact that I heard that and it clicked to me that that's when I realized what danger I was in. I didn't know that I was in danger. I just thought I was in love with a flawed man. I didn't realize that I was the one who was like, I was disappearing, whether he was going to kill me or not. I was disappearing within myself. I got up and I got out, and it's just been, I can't be more grateful. Comedy has given me my life. I was able to leave the area I could work. I met my husband through stand-up. I'm just all those things. So, I do think that laughter is part of it. It doesn't solve those problems, but that whatever's innately in you, we all have that. I think of it like a sunflower seed. Like, it just it's here. You just got to let it bloom to find your strength. And maybe you don't find it till you're older, but she's attacking my feet, by the way. So.
Well, number one, thank you for sharing that experience, because I have a lot of listeners who are survivors of domestic abuse and violence and things like that. And I have a lot of fascination with people who have psychopathy, meaning those people who they are one person at one point and then they turn totally different, because I kind of grew up with that. And so I just want you to know, as a therapist, is that one of the number one indicators of a woman dying from domestic abuse is being strangled.
Yeah, it was one moment I really thought, it's very funny, and I'm not trying to be controversial, and I don't care what Blake Lively does with Taylor Swift. I love Taylor's music. I love Blake Lively. There was nobody who looked cooler at a Super Bowl than Blake Lively. But when they were talking about, I heard an interview saying this movie that she's in that's about a violent relationship, and she said she doesn't lead as if she was a victim. Well, guess what? You do.
Right.
You do for a long time, because it does taint your reality. It doesn't mean that you're a victim, but it means that you can't shake that. You make all decisions based upon that. Each new person you meet, it takes a long time to trust, again, not only other people, but yourself. So for a long time, you do, until you're clear of that. And then you set your boundaries, and you get strong enough, because what you're dealing with when you're really in that is, it's not that someone's violating your boundaries. There are no boundaries left. I mean, it's like, there's no walls. The borders are open,
Right.
So.
And I have experienced myself being in relationships with men who, I've always been this person, strong, loud-mouthed, definitely will say what I feel. And I think that there are some people who don't like to see that, and they want to take it from you. It gives them a feeling of power. And so I'm so grateful that you were able to find your way out of this, that for those listening to this who are still struggling, please know that help is available. I will be posting resources at the end of this episode. And I just, one of the most powerful things about this podcast is I just love having really important people share their experience, strength, and hope. Because I think that people might look at you and say, oh my gosh, look at Tammy, and she's this famous comedian and she's on all these TV shows, etc. But when you're human, and what I love is looking at, okay, well, this is a really wonderful, talented person, but at the end of the day, we all have this thing called humanity in common. And so sharing your experience will help somebody listening to this. And,
then I'm happy I went through it. I mean, that was the thing, that it saved my life. Literally, I would be able to, for 45 minutes, or I don't even know if I was doing 45 minutes, 30 minutes at the time, because I think I was just a feature act. Even though I had to go on stage with turtlenecks in the summer, I was able to put it down and just worry about making other people laugh, which is something I don't put away right now as a comic, because I don't know what's next for people. So if I don't learn how to teach them to laugh, or at least give them an hour of relief, I also think that, look, hardships are part of humanity. Mm-hmm. I think that you cannot, I went through that. Someone else is going through verbal abuse. Someone else is going through love bombing. I mean, there's always something that is going on. Whenever you have to make yourself smaller for the only person I sometimes make myself smaller for now, this is my teenage son, who's like just this morning dropping off for school. Mom, please don't get out of the car and take a whole bunch of videos, even though, like I want to be out there with confetti and going, he's a junior. Like, I can't believe we're this far. So I'm like, okay, I'll make myself smaller for you, because I'm trying to save your money for college and not therapy. All right. But I don't know if we'll get there, but
I'm dead.
Listen,
that's appropriate. That's appropriate. Tammy.
Yeah, that's when you do it, and I think that we all go through different things that you just have to find your way. I love that women right now, there is a movement where they're supporting each other. There's also a movement where they're our biggest critics. Oh. I think a lot of the opportunities that I missed were from women standing in the way. And when I was younger, that's one of the great things about getting old, is you're no longer perceived as a threat. When you go through menopause, your sexuality seems to fall away. So they don't, but
which is so insane and just such bullshit, by the way, but
yeah, well, it's okay. It's all right. You know what? Listen,
you'll take
I'd much rather take I'd rather much take the fast lane than have the high boobs. But I think if we really could get underneath and support each other, I think that, for a long time, when I would go out for a job, there'd be a lot of women there, but only one of us would get the job. So they pitted, especially female comics. That's like, I didn't get to know Heather McDonald until we were adults, quote unquote, right. We were established, because then we would see each other and be able to meet on common ground, because it wasn't a competition. So I think that's what's really great.
Right. And speaking of that, so going back to Love Island, I couldn't catch up because, as I mentioned, there were 36 freaking episodes, but I did watch the finale because something you just said reminded me of how you're right. Like, Vanderpump Rules, everyone was so frustrated of like, why can't you all just rally around Ariana instead of doing what they did? But Love Island, that is a good example. I'm watching this reunion and I'm like, I hope this is indicative of the younger people of
me too.
In the world, because these women were so supportive of each other and lovely and kind. And I was like, it actually did give me a little bit of hope, to be honest.
And I feel like I'm pretty enlightened,
I
but
think so.
It would take me a while to be kind to someone who I felt was a rival for a man. Like, it took, I would have to make it took me to probably go through therapy, be in my mid-30s before I went, oh, this isn't the girl's fault. he's the one that has the commitment to me.
Right.
And I think when I found that and I found myself the center and stood fully in me is when I found my husband. And I had like 3 or 4 guys that I could have been dating, but that's when the suitors, the good people came. And I was able to find my husband and go, okay, this is who I am. I'm not even going to pretend I cook. I'm not even going to order out and put it in Tupperware so it looks like these are leftovers and I'm just such an amazing cook for you. I don't cook. You want to eat? You should cook. You know what I mean?
Can I tell you? I thought I was the only other Italian woman in the world who didn't cook.
Well, I know how
to me.
Well, because culturally, it felt like if I did that, then I had to get married and have kids because that's what their worth is. That was my grandmother's worth. That's what my mother-in-law's worth is. That's their love language, So, I can cook. I just don't choose to because he's a better cook than I am. So what, and my husband also loves to eat every 36 seconds. So if I ate like him, I would have a reality show, but it would start with my 600 pounds. So I can't,
Yeah,
I just can't. I have to.
One thing I did want to tell you, because I remember the last couple times we spoke, you had talked about Aaron on Love Island feeling like he was a sociopath. And so here, Tammy, I have to tell you this because you're going to appreciate this. So I couldn't watch the bazillions of hours of footage, but I did go, I started the reunion because I also wanted to see Ariana, support her. She's such a queen. I just adore her. And so here's the thing. I have wicked intuition, like to the point that I'd probably be burned as a witch if this were back in the day. Right. And so I'm scanning. And by the way, not only are there a lot of episodes of Love Island, there are so many people. I couldn't even keep track of all of it. But so I looked at the whole group of people surveyed, and this one person, I got a feeling right in my solar plexus. Whenever I encounter someone who has antisocial traits or tendencies, I get this little tingle right in my solar plexus. And I look and I see, and I was like, something's up with this person. Didn't know who it was. Then I'm finding out it was Aaron. It was Aaron.
I was often saying on this, we went back and forth because I think that he reminds me, if you've ever seen, you should go watch the movie, The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Oh, yes.
It's a guy who's literally a sociopath. And it's from what I went through in my life. I started this whole, and some of the choices of family members that ended up trickling down to me. If you watch my act at all, you know that I talk about my family. I have been able to I'm basically, a behavioral psychologist. I can watch people and people have traits. And one of the things that I always tell people is that, listen, Charles Manson didn't walk up and punch people in the face. Crazy people don't do that because you'd never hang out with them. Charlie was like, hey, let's party with Charlie. Let's, we have the Beach Boys over. Let's hang out. We're all friends. I got all these great people. Crazy just doesn't walk up. It sneaks up on you slowly until you have an attachment. So you can't call it crazy. And crazy might not be a word that you use in your vernacular, because I know as a therapist you can't. But for me, as a street layman, I can say that. And so I feel like and Aaron definitely, one of the things that no one is addressing about that couple, Aaron and Kayla, and yes, he did the cheating and whatever. It's all confined in the game. And one of the things he did to her was the deepest cut that I had ever seen. I'll be really honest with you, was afterwards. Everybody's so fascinated. The ratings are huge because of people. Like I said, people came for Ariana and stayed for them. They were in their hotel room together afterwards. They had their phones. Kayla was talking to a friend who was worried about some impact statement that had happened on the show where Leah, who we love, Queen Leah, had said it's giving white woman, and Kayla was getting a lot of flack. So sometimes our friends just want to be our friends. They don't always give us the right advice. And Kayla had one of those friends who was just saying, Don't worry about it. No one's going to know who Leah is in a year. Just trying to give her, don't get in. That conversation was going on. Erin started a lie. People heard what was going on in Kayla and her friend's conversation during Erin's live and came back for Kayla again. Now, that conversation didn't just start when he started the live. He knew that live was going on. He could have excused himself and went to the bathroom. She was literally behind him. That was a sabotage. That was a complete sabotage so he could leave that relationship to make Kayla the bad guy. So if he left that relationship, he would have garnered at least some following. Mm-hmm. But it didn't work, thank goodness.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the reasons I am so interested in you, is because you really do have not all people who are in the public eye who do what you do have that piece, but you do have a piece to you, like a behavioral psychologist. Like, you have this intuition. You see things for how they are. That's a blessing, but then it's a curse when people try to gaslight you about it or make you, whatever. But I just wanted to validate for you that even though I didn't see that totally tracks to me. And it to me, there's like a look, it's like the light's on, but nobody's home. To me.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, I would feel horrible if I was misjudging. And by the way, does it affect my life at all? It does not. Does not. He does not affect my life, and I can be right, wrong. And I'm just saying that I have been there. I really have been there. I didn't end up on the floor thinking about that OJ really killed Nicole because someone was kind. Those people are in your life, and you will find yourself acting out of your own character, misjudging the situations, feeling badly that, they'll get you to feel like, well, how could you do that to me? Why would you judge me like that? When sometimes those are protective instincts. I told you off air that one of the first couple of years that I was a comedian, comedy starts in a weird way. You started on the road. You'd be on the road Tuesday through Sunday back then. You'd stay in these comedy condos, which were basically like hostels for comedians, right? And most of the time it was a great camaraderie. Sometimes, because I lived in Cleveland, if I was working one particular time, if you're working in Des Moines, Iowa, and then you're moving on to Omaha, Nebraska, you'd go stay an extra day, and then a new comic would come in and we'd all hang out. It was pretty neat. We're talking about late 90s. And there was a guy who actually won Star Search as a comedian. His name was Vince Champ, and he came into the condo in Omaha on a Monday. I didn't know him. I had worked all week. I was moving on. He was working that night. I said, hello. I went to the gym. How are you? You can take that room, but I went to the gym. I came back from the gym. He was getting ready to go to his gig because he was working at college. I went to a movie that night. I came back to the condo. I went to sleep, got up the next morning and left. I never saw him again. And it happened I crossed his path again within like 3 months. Cut to 5 months later, I'm on stage in Kansas City, and the owner said, the FBI is here for you. I'm sorry, he said the cops are here. And it turns out that Vincent Champ was one of the most prolific serial rapists of our time. Mm-hmm. And the night that I had stayed in the condo with him in Omaha, he had driven to Lincoln, Nebraska. And, well, I guess we've already sworn and everything else. Can I say what happened?
Yes, you can. Absolutely.
He raped a woman, and then apparently came back to the condo, but I didn't see him, so I don't know. But it also set up in there's nothing funny about it, but they said to me, your boyfriend is a rapist. And I already told you that I knew something was going on with him, the boyfriend that I was dating. And I was like, oh my God, I knew something. I didn't know he was a rapist. And they were like, no, this guy. And they thought, again, it also stands to where women are, because I was in these cities with this guy, that I had to be his girlfriend. So I had to get that clarified, that because they had never seen a young female comic. They didn't understand. So I had to get that part of the job clarified. But then I lived for the next 12 years with guilt. I had a weird type of, not survivor's guilt, but I felt like this woman saved my life, because if he'd have come back with that energy, which clearly we know now that the people who do that, it becomes this feeling that they can no longer contain, that he probably would have had to kill me, because I knew who he was. And years ago, just about 3 years ago now, I found an interview that this woman did, and she used her name, and she told about her life post that, and her family. Her father had to sit at the end of the driveway, and her relationship broke apart, and it was just really horrible for her. But I called her, I found her information, reached out, and then we spoke and let her know that she saved my life. Like, I know it doesn't mitigate your pain, but know that what you went through might have saved my life. And she was so amazing. She not forgave me, but she just released that for me. Right. And it became the onus for that podcast that I've been doing with my best friend. We're on hiatus right now, but Laura, cause she's a cop. She became a cop when I became a comic. Two loudmouth crazy women who went in these male dominated fields. And it's the cop and the comedian. And we started talking about crimes in comedy. And that's the first episode that we started with.
And what's the name of the podcast?
The Cop and the Comedian.
Oh, it's literally The Cop and the Comedian.
The Cop and the Comedian, a true friendship crime podcast. And Vincent Champ, they said, was responsible. They convicted him only on a few, but maybe 36. And he's never going to get out, which is the way it's supposed to be.
Thank goodness. And it's just, I swear, you have gone through so much. And because it's like you tell these stories and each one could curl your toes. I just can't imagine, and I know you are very mindful about how you talk about this, but, with deference to the woman who went through this. But I'm glad that you were able to recognize for yourself that is to shake your internal sense of safety. I feel that's what that did. Being in the same home, in the same environment as somebody who's committing these crimes and doing these egregious things to women.
Well, not home. I didn't know him. Let's make sure we're clear, because I didn't know him. It was 24 hours. So, but yes.
Oh,
you're right. That
I just mean same space. Right. Because we have to be very clear. Clearly, you had no contact with him. You had nothing to do with him, but he was in your space for a period of time. And that is just, it's a psychological, it's kind of like a mind fuck, because it's just like, well, what did that mean for my sense of safety? And then you've already had so many experiences where your sense of safety was challenged. And so I think it speaks to the complexity of just what makes you such an amazing human being, because when we've seen darkness or been touched by it in some way, it changes us, but in some really amazing ways too. And so you've been able to take that and do amazing things with it.
Well, I think it made me tough. It made me speak my mind. If I'm uncomfortable, I'm going to call you out. That's one of the things is you see these TikTok videos. It literally changed everything, because I couldn't give up my job. I still had to go live with strange men. Every week I had to go live in a condo with two, and they were all men. They didn't put women together. So I had to figure out and it wasn't just the comics. There's also the people who live in the apartment building that know. There's the people from the comedy club that know sometimes those condos didn't have keys, whatever, traveling. And back then, you travel and not everything was 24 hours. So I had to figure out ways to be safe. Right. I had to figure out ways prior to September 11th. If I was driving in the middle of the night, I'd go and I was exhausted. And even now I'll go sleep in an airport parking lot, or I'd go into an airport where people will watch you. If I would stop to get gas anytime post 11:30, 12 o'clock at night in an area I don't know, I will pump the gas first and then go in. If I have to go to the bathroom, then I'll go in and pay. Well, now you have to pay first, but so you go in and you give them your money, then you pump the gas, then you go to the bathroom. then you go get your change, because they will watch for you, because they'll be looking for you to make sure that you pay or get your change. There are little things that we have to do as women. You know, you cannot pull up to a van with the side of it. You cannot stop and help someone. If someone is by them, yesterday I saw a guy who was horrible. He was in the rain. I felt sorry for him, but I couldn't. I'm not going to stop and give him a ride.
Right.
What I did do is then I called 311 in my area, and I said, this guy's over here. He probably needs a ride. You know what I mean? I do think too that sometimes those are things that I thought people knew about, because I grew up with brothers and I knew certain things. Some people don't know. So each little tip you get, even if it seems ridiculous, tell someone. You know what I mean? Tell somebody. It's okay to ask for ID. You know, it's okay if you get pulled over, to make sure that you drive to a police station if it's in a rural area, and you call 911 and say, I'm driving to the police station right now. I mean, those are things, you know, just so many things.
Right. And it's funny. Well, it's not funny, but I talk about this on my podcast a lot, because I've had some very scary experiences. And so I have talked to women about how to keep yourself safe, but still get help if you think you're concerned about somebody, but not putting yourself in harm's way. So I think it's a really beautiful message. And I'm being mindful because we're coming towards the end of our time, which sucks, because I feel like we could talk.
What's more? Well, trust me, I'm going to see you at Jim Thorpe. We're tight now, so it's all good, my bish.
That's right. So Tammy, first of all, let's tell everybody, plug, promote, where they can reach you. You know, I mean, I could say it, but I want you to tell people, you know.
2-hour specials that are on, it was originally on Netflix, but Netflix decided that I'm out of their target age group. So it's now over on Prime, because I want you to have free shipping. So I have 2-hour specials on there. Watch them. Please rate them nicely. I'd really appreciate it. I have a new movie coming out with Vince Vaughn sometime soon, with Vince Vaughn, Susan Sarandon. I have a little part in it. If you see me, send a big like up, and just follow me on Instagram and TikTok or Facebook, wherever, because now that's how they're defining who gets specials. It's not about who's funny anymore. It's about how many followers you have. So please follow me. I would really appreciate it.
Yeah. And I follow you on Instagram. I mean, that's how we became acquainted with one another. And your Instagram is so hilarious, because you just post like such amazing stuff. You post clips. And by the way, the specials that you're talking about, I've watched them and they're absolutely hilarious. So you have many specials, but the Way After School special,
yes.
When you were talking about your brother and the to-do, I literally was like apoplectic. I was laughing so hard, I thought that I would never recover. And I want people to understand, please go, please support, follow, rate positively, watch the specials, because people are sleeping on Tammy Pescatelli, and that's just a travesty. So go check her out. Please go to the website. If you want to see me too, go to the Jim Thorpe one. I'll be there.
Yeah, we'll do some fun things. That sounds great.
Yep. And, Tammy, I'm so grateful, not only for us to connect, but for you to be here. We both have had a lot going on. And so I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you. And I'm just still pinching myself that this has even happened.
I'm blessed to get to know you. So thank you so much. And we'll talk soon.
Yes, we'll talk soon. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye-bye. Disclaimer. Posts are not intended to diagnose, treat, or provide medical advice. Your Bish Therapist is for entertainment and informational purposes only. The podcast, my opinions, and posts are my own and not associated with past or present employers, any organizations, Bravo TV, Greyheart Productions, or any other television network. The information in YBT podcast and on its social media is provided for general informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat. Please do not act or refrain from acting based on anything you read, see, or hear on YBT podcast or associated social media. Communicating with YBT via email and/or social media does not form a therapeutic alliance. Melissa, operator of YBT, is unable to provide any therapeutic advice, treatment, or feedback.